Homesteading. I'm in the bee yard today and we're going to start unpacking the wintering boxes. I'm going to start with the bees that are dead because they're not going to give me a hard time. And the 2 pallets that have live bees in them, I'm going to leave them probably for another day and unpack them either when it's a little bit cooler or first thing in the morning. So most of the bees are in the hive and they don't give me such a hard time. Today I'd just be annoying them. So it's overcast, a little bit windy, so we're just going to leave them alone. But the ones that are dead, we're going to start unpacking, and there's enough of them to do, so let's go. I don't think my wintering method is horrible, and it worked for the first few years, so I don't understand why I'm having so many losses. But there is a few guys that winter like this around and they're successful, so I'm probably going to go over and take a look at how their entrances are and how their top covers are, to look at everything they do and just see if I can see there's something that I'm doing wrong. The first time can be just like a one-off thing, but 2 in a row with horrible losses, I have to start looking at how I'm doing things for sure. Here's one of the weaker hives I had, but I put a whole thing of honey on top, and it looks like they rifled through it. I think that one starved out. Okay, so this one here had no zima, so there was bees alive at one point in here, and I don't know if they ran out of stores or what, but we're gonna go take a look, see what happened. Here we have a hive that there's a cluster here that whatever reason died. There's honey up here, but there's not much on this side. So I actually don't think it died of starving, but it might have succumbed to legnosema. And don't worry about the mold. That really isn't moisture problem. That's what happens when you didn't unpack them right away after it starts warming up. See, when it starts warming up, I kind of did a quick look and there wasn't any mold. There's a lot of just dead bees without mold on it, and you leave them for a little bit, and we had such a long drawn out spring that I just didn't want to unpack them. I probably could have unpacked the dead ones for sure, but I didn't. And so now they're starting to mold a bit. So I don't think moisture was a big factor in this, but gotta find out what it is for sure. This hive is super heavy and there's honey inside there, and and there's not much mold, and whatever mold did start was because I just waited for a while to get them out. There's not much honey in the top, and I don't know if that had a factor. I got tons of honey in the bottom though. I can just feel it, so we're gonna pull that off. There is no eczema stain, so that probably didn't help anything either. Oh my gracious me. Forgot my hive tool. I have a problem. Man, I need a screwdriver or something. Let's go. Got a little pry bar. Let's see if I can get it in there with that. Okay, top's not that heavy. I don't think this thing had very much honey in it either. I don't know if they all got robbed out. It's really important to learn from your mistakes. That's what I'm looking at here. And looking at why the bees died is one of the most important. You know, we got to look at, did they run out of food? Do you think it was mites? Do you think it was that, you know, like all kinds of different scenarios you got to look at. These ones, it sure looks like they just ran out of feed. So maybe I have to be more diligent at the end of the year, maybe cut short, splitting my hives, and just making sure that they are fed well and up to weight. These are surprising though, because I was sure these were heavy. The only difference is with these is I'm thinking that I had the weight, but not all boxes were full of honey. So I had like 70 some pounds between the two boxes, and I'm wondering if that somewhat causes some issues. Than just having one box with 70 some pounds, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking that might be part of the problem. I have been wintering in singles mainly, and the ones that survived were in singles, so I'm not going to be wintering more in doubles for sure. So that is one observation I'm having with this. Yeah, these died pretty early, and they're clearly out of honey. Okay, so the first pallet I had them in doubles, and they felt plenty heavy, but they weren't consistently full, both top and bottom box. So I'm wondering if that had an effect. Clearly they ran out of food and they died. So the first one I would say is probably the first pallet I'd say is my fault. So we're gonna go take a look at the other ones and just see if we can see what killed them. Okay, so we're gonna go through this box and we're gonna see what happened. That was the first one we went through, and I stored them in doubles. These were stored in singles. So I'm gonna unscrew them and we're gonna open up and take a look. My gracious, I want to show you what happened. I don't know what that was. That had to have been a squirrel or maybe a rat. I have no clue. They made a very large hole to get in there. That is crazy. I don't know, is it still in there? What do you think? Okay. Okay. So this one seems like it ran out of honey. Not very heavy. And it would have been pretty early in the year. And it doesn't look like there's much robbing, because when they rob, they really cut the edge of the comb. And it looks real nice. So this one was starved out too. We're going to look at the next hive. Okay, let's see how heavy. Oh, there's lots of honey in here. And not too many bees. There is honey in here, I can feel it. But they just died off. And I mean, there was a decent cluster. There's the bees there. I would say most of them so far have been starving, but that last one, I don't think it died of starvation, so. Okay, so this one here doesn't have very much honey in it for sure. Okay, let's see what's in this one, because that's where that thing was chewing into. Oh, there's something in there. Here, cluster, not too much honey. It does look like it's been robbing, because you can see little chunks of comb. When bees are robbing other hives, they really don't care so much about how they get the honey out, so you're going to see chunks of comb and all kinds of stuff. I'd say the first pallet died of starvation. The second pallet, I'd say maybe 2 of them, I have no idea what happened. They just seemed to die. They had honey left. The other 2 could have been starvation. So I'm going to have to spend a lot more time trying to get them up to strength in the winter, and maybe not make as many splits. The reason I am filming my failures here is because most people don't film their failures, and you never can get a good view of what's happening. And this is what's happening. I probably didn't feed them enough in the fall, or whatever the case may be, and they didn't make it. So I guess we're going to move on to the next boxes. Okay, so I want to show you something. In here you have a patch of brood. That was in the fall that they were trying to get bigger. But on this side, there was more bees here, but there's a bee, looks like he came in with some pollen, and it looks like goldenrod. So I think maybe they were brood rearing too late and couldn't handle it, and then they kind of went through their stores. Because if you look in the very bottom, you can tell every one of those cells has been laid in. So they were on full-on build mode, and it was probably too late in the year, and then they couldn't handle it. At least that's what's my guess. So my guess is they were trying to make brood too late in the year, and it got cool, and they didn't have enough time to do it. I probably had my part in that, because if I end up making the splits too late, they're trying to make more brood to make the winter when they should be starting to slow down. So maybe I have to start cutting off my brood rearing way earlier. The weather here is pretty extreme, and you never know exactly when it's going to get cold. And you know what? Maybe I was too aggressive with the bee splits, and they just didn't have enough time to build up, and then they attempt to make more bees too late in the season when they would normally be shutting down because they know their hive's full. So I'm looking at that thinking, you know what, I really have to learn from this, and don't make splits that late, I guess. Okay, so when you have mold on the frames like that, don't worry so much about it. Just take as much of the bees off as you can. And then when you put that in a hive, a strong hive, they will clean that up, and you will never know it was like that. Bees are absolutely amazing how they can clean frames. So the frames aren't garbage. Don't be throwing them out because there's mold on them. The bees can clean it up real good. So it's better to have drawn comb with a bit of mold on it than not at all, in my book anyways. I run foundationless frames, and frames that are damaged like that I keep, because they will just refill in all the holes. Even that one, that's not so bad. We're gonna throw that in there. Look at that. I try to get most of the dead bees off it, so it has a chance to dry out. But I'm telling you, you throw that in and the bees clean that up and there's no problem. I'm not anywhere close to done, but I kind of went through 3 pallets. I have 4 more to go besides the 2 that there's live bees in. I have to run out and pick up some stuff. Hopefully if I get back, maybe I can go through more of the boxes. But so far it looks like they kind of ran out of food, a lot of them. So I am definitely going to have to modify how I end my year. I think I'm pretty good at doing splits and able to manipulate hives and all that. But you kind of have to know when to stop and allow them to build up for the winter. So I'm thinking that is one of my biggest things that has caused a lot of this problem. So I'm gonna have to try to change that in this year. So that's about enough for today. So you guys have a good one.